Namaskar and welcome to this exciting new episode of Sattology, Debunking Mythology. And we have the perfect person today to tell us about mythology. A lot of words have been mistranslated, mispronounced, and miseducated. Whether it's a right or wrong word, Jeffrey will tell me. But but here we have a very famous author with the Gita comes live. So let us welcome Sri Jeffrey Armstrong.
Pranams, Ji. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Pleasure to be
So
here.
it's our pleasure, Jeffrey. So when we talk about these mistranslations, and we did touch about last time also some of the anglicized words and the terms that have been used. So when people say yoga and the Sanskrit word is yog, so do you think it makes a big difference over there? We'll start with that.
No, at this point, I would say they need to get oriented to a new worldview, not be trapped in the pronunciation of words. Because later on, their Sanskrit will improve, but it's their worldview we need to improve first. So yoga or yoga, if you make them feel too much of a loser at saying the Sanskrit, it may not help them at this point. But if you want to correct it and say, we don't use that A at the end all the time, you have to then tell why. Maybe too linguistically complicated.
When we were speaking last time, and you mentioned the origin of the word education, and that was very, very interesting for me to hear from you. And you may have spoken in many places also. But how do you see, when we speak about education, the moment you say education, it looks vastly different from vidya. So in India, in Sanskrit word, the vidya is totally different than education. So how do you correlate the two?
Well, first, the word Veda is a very profound word because it gave us the English word video. And most people don't understand this. They don't see it, that Veda, Vidya, and video are all the same word. And video or Veda means that which allows you to see something. It gives you actual darshan, a vision of something. So Vidya and Veda and video are the same word. So we could say that the ancient method of seeing videos was called Veda. Because they were trying to show us something, and that's the rishis who help us to what? See.
So in Bhagavad Gita, there's a translation between four people: Dhritarashtra, Sanjay, Krishna, and Arjun. So here, two people. Now all the four people are. It begins from Dhritarashtra, ends with Sanjay, and so and people have doubts on whether Sanjay got a divya drishti or whether how he heard it. So what is your viewpoint on that? What do you think had happened in Mahabharata, according to Mahabharata?
Well, supposedly he was the disciple of Veda Vyasadeva. So it's important for everyone to know that a very important historical moment was occurring while Bhagavad was on the ground. In the midst of this, you might call it political teaching. Sometimes he's called political Krishna, and he's not Gopi Krishna. Gopi Krishna was in Vrindavan. But political Krishna ended up speaking the Gita in the midst of this conflict. But while this is going on, this is the historical moment where the Vedas are about to be written down for the first time and go from oral to written. And so this is huge. And to not know that is to miss the historical moment. And Veda Vyasadeva is the avatar, the particular vehicle through which the entire Vedic Vidya is going to be written down and given to each of his disciples for them to be the caretaker of. So he's starting specific lineages with now written material. And now Sanskritam is becoming written Sanskrit. And so this is a major historical moment. And Sanjaya was a student of, a disciple of Veda Vyas. And rishis can give you siddhi. They can teach you a particular power. And it was his endowment that he specifically gave to Sanjay, that he could be the seer as a part of the Avatar's Leela, as Bhagavan speaking this, as part of the larger movie of the entire presentation of the Mahabharata, the epic, which was a historical moment that should never be forgotten because it was so vast and so amazing. So it takes a little while for people to really understand this is the biggest story that ever landed on our planet.
No, that's no doubt about it. Now, when we say Dharma Kshetre, Kurukshetre, Samaveta, now a lot of importance is being given, and you also mentioned some very good point about Sanskritam through Sanskrit and the importance of that language over there. So how do you define Sanskrit for a normal person? Like you and I may know, but for a normal person who is first time hearing, what do you tell them?
Well, this is hearkening back to the worldview problem. Whatever you tell someone, you have to set a context. And if you don't give them a new context, they'll use the one they have. So the problem in describing anything Vedic to anyone who's been living in a civilization that only believes in one lifetime and is either scientific, which means atheist, or the three Abrahamic religions, which kind of means my way or the highway, coercion or blind faith. So the question you asked is very important, is where do we start in giving a new worldview to people who don't have one? And how do we do it so they don't get confused as we begin to unfold the story? It's kind of once upon a time, but I like to say once when there was no time. So I like to start with Brahman and Prakriti and Atma, so that we orient the individual to the context in which we're trying to describe for them.
No, the word Brahman, you included not just worldview, you included multiple worldviews in Brahman.
Absolutely. And therefore, that's why I said once out of time, not upon a time. Because once upon a time is stories that get inside of matter, Prakriti. But once outside of time, something happened. So your question is very important. In a way, Brahman manifests within Prakriti as the akshars, or the letters of the Sanskrit alphabet. So you could say that Sanskrit words are chunks of Brahman that have landed inside Prakriti like meteors or little chunks of some other energy, reality. And so if you know how to sequence them, this is what the guru is. If you don't get them in sequence, you're still confused.
You touched upon a very important point last, in last answer or last point you mentioned there. You word the word Abrahamic, and also you mentioned the word one life syndrome, and which is, see, our viewpoint is totally different, and we are talking about Brahman viewpoint here, not just world viewpoint. So one life syndrome, how it has destroyed the human development, I would say.
There's an irony in this, as the Vedic knowledge traveled to the West, some interesting things arose, like be here now. And funnily enough, that's the problem, not the solution. The
Exactly.
problem is the people to whom that was said have no idea of who they are. So it kind of said to them, keep on being who you don't know who you are. Just be that. And they went, oh, well, that's easy. Thanks. That saved me a lot of trouble. I didn't have to change my mind. I guess that to be me. Thank you.
You know, the common sense is conspicuous by its absence. Sometimes we see that way, like because the you're a poet as well, so you can understand the metaphor behind it. So the uh, common sense is conspicuous by its absence. We see, so when you restrict a human mind, or that you cannot think beyond these boundaries, so it's never going to produce a complete human being, and you can add anywhere in the middle.
That's right. So
So
the platform is where education begins, back to the point you were making, that education should have begun at 4 years old, at what we call kindergarten. And the teacher should come in the room and say, all right, everyone, first of all, let me say, all of you are Atmas. Now repeat after me. You are Atmas. It means you can't die. You're immortal beings. You're visiting here. There's nothing to join. You can't not be an Atma. You can't cut it, burn it. And then the very beginning of the Gita is where we are. See, Spot runs fast. Spot's the Atma. Atma can't die. You are immortal beings and cannot die. And nothing and no one can take that away from you. That should have been kindergarten, preschool. So I have to start there with anyone outside the Vedic culture. And if they can't stand that, they're not going to understand another word I say. Because they're frightened to death. They think they live one lifetime. They don't know who they are. They don't have a new definition to hold on to. So to me, that's the step one of the whole process. And that's namaste. That's how I look at namaste. It means, hello, I see you as the Atma.
that is correct, because namaste means I believe in your existence, eternal existence. Nama asti. So
Yes.
you're absolutely right there. Now coming to this point, like one of the things is Bhagavad Gita is such an interesting book. It anytime you open the page, it speaks to you, and that's the difference between Bhagavad Gita and the other books. Bhagavad Gita speaks to you. Other books you have to read. There's,
It was the first audio book.
it's the
It
first
talks to
audio,
you as soon as you open it.
not just audio. Audio is just like a mind. They're reading your mind. I tell people that I sometimes I say read a shloka and say, okay, what is the question comes to your mind next? And Arjun is asking the same question, and so there is a continuity, and like it goes on and on. Like in the fourth chapter it says imam avastita yogam. Next logical question is, how come you and I are same age? How are you telling me what that you spoke to Vivaswan before? So 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 it's a different viewpoint. Now what do you have to say on the dynamic nature of Bhagavad Gita? You wrote Bhagavad Gita comes alive. It's always alive.
Well, first of all, let's pursue what we just said here a moment longer. Because if you say to someone something that changes their entire worldview, that they're the Atma, then two more words are necessary. We've already said them. And it's Brahman and Prakriti. Because the next thing they're going to ask, well, then why am I here?
Aliens.
Because you said something that's not common sense here. You just told me the least commonsensical thing you could say here, it appears. You said to me, I'm an immortal being. And that's not what I see all around me. I see a bunch of crazy, confused beings who are anything but immortal in the way they're behaving. So what's going on here? And the answer is, of course, that this is a realm of forgetfulness. But there's one clue that is unavoidable. Do you want to die? And they will say, no. And I say, which part of you doesn't want to die? Because if you're made of matter, there's no part of her that can have the idea that I don't want to die. Because all matter is obviously temporary. Any fool can see that. In that case, Why are you concerned about continuing to live if you're made of matter? So the proof is in you. All you have to know is realize that the reason you don't want to die is because you're a being who doesn't die. We have to start there. And if you don't see that, if you can't see that, it's not faith, it's you who doesn't want to die. I didn't say it's a faith. You didn't join a religion and then not want to die. You came to join something not wanting to die, afraid. So you joined a blind faith religion because you're afraid of dying. Okay. So that's the biggest evidence. So this is a binary question. You either do or don't. So right now, with all that evidence I just gave you, which seems more reasonable? That you don't die, and that's why you don't want to die, and that you're stuck in a place where everything is temporary, or that the whole thing is temporary and nothing matters, in which case, go have a nice day. Stop asking questions. But other than that, if there's a problem, the problem is you're an immortal being in a place where you have to die, but you don't die and you don't want to die. To me, that's the first question for grade school. And look at all the adults that have no clue about it.
It points out to the basic education, which you said, kindergarten. This is the ABC of knowing your true identity.
And ABC is alpha omega, and alpha omega is Om.
That's right.
It's So this starting point and ending point, this is the true beauty of the Veda. Once you see it, the starting point and ending point is, and I have a little joke about this. So here, sometimes people need images for this. So they say, what do you mean? I say, well, look, we all come from a place that's immortal in its construction. So it's a little hard to think of because we've been stuck here. But just imagine you were in a place where all the immortal, all the undying reality is, and you decided to come visit this place. Okay. And there was a little warning above the door. It said, caution, things in the material world may not always be what they appear to be. And it said, you must be taller than this penguin to go to the material world. The amusement park of the material world. What is it? It's a merry-go-round because everything here is cyclic. And what is Krishna finally going to say about being time? So you're about to go into the realm of time. So I call this material world the amusement park. And there's merry-go-rounds and there's Ferris wheels and roller coasters. We got on, we went in, and then we got covered in goo, G-U.
Sometimes, the arguments that you hear from this logic and I experience it, you experience it, you teach regularly. You're an astrologer also. So sometimes the logic we hear that this is too serious a topic. So my question to
Let's talk about nuclear weapons, something light and interesting. Wait, let's attack the White House. That's not so heavy.
too serious.
Yeah, in a crazy world.
and this
It's a heavy topic. Yeah.
And when you ask them, and many of the people here are laughing at right now, because they study like putting a rod in the brain. We have neurologists on the call right now. That is serious topic here. Putting a rod in the brain to balance the brain cells and whatever they have. All of us have gray matter, and like that's serious to me. But this one is something that relieves me. Like if somebody tells me I'm not the body, no insurance applies to me, nothing applies to me, I'm not the body. So how come this notion of pessimism, or how can people consider this as a pessimistic information or hopeless, like there's no hope? What do you say on that to these people?
Well, the fact is that the psychology that made them not believe in themselves is fear based. And one of the conclusions that could occur from being within matter in darkness, if you're plunged in darkness in a dark room, fear could be one of the results. So I could either make you more afraid, amplifying your fear, and then I can manipulate you, or I could say, don't be afraid, you're okay, don't worry, you can't be killed, you're fine. Now, the religions of the world chose plan A. They said, ooh, you're in trouble. Ooh, you're evil. Ooh, you did something bad. What? Oh, just don't even ask. But you're evil, and that's why you're here. And it's going to get worse if you're not careful. And pretty soon, you could end up just getting totally roasted forever. And you're already bad, so you better do what I say. This is the psychology of the Abrahamic religions.
It's a guilt.
You're evil. Somebody did something bad a long time ago, or you did, or somehow, and therefore you're totally untrustworthy, you're evil, you're here because of that. You need already to be punished. You could get sent to a place and punished forever. This is a conversation to make someone totally intimidated and frightened, not to enlighten them.
Fear psychosis plays a very big role.
It's
And
the
at the end of the
basis of civilization in our world.
at the end of the day, you confess and go back to your old life.
And hope that the disease of being a sinner doesn't get you tomorrow. So you get taken away. This is the first thing I want everyone to really think about. Because coming from outside the Vedic culture, I was aware when I came in, it's like no oxygen, suddenly you can breathe. My guru said, look, the first thing is you're an immortal being. I can't really do anything for you, but I can give you some knowledge that you could do something about. But you have to be the decider. He gave me back to me. No one except a guru from Bharat can do that. There's no other philosophy on our planet that gives you back as the first step in the conversation.
So whenever I used to go out for book distributions, I'd still go out. And I used to have the experience, and there is one very famous line I would repeat. I don't know where I heard from. This book, your book tells you what to do, but this book lets you find out yourself. There's a difference right there. So you're not reading it to be told what to do, because nobody likes to be told anything today, or in the past also. It's not just today. It's in the past also. Nobody liked to be told. So the gurus used to show a direction, and nowadays people can access their guru on chat, on Twitter, on Facebook, and WhatsApp. And earlier people used to meet once in a while.
So your earlier question was, why does this seem so heavy to people when we give them such a simple thing as you're the Atma? And the answer is because it means if we're right, it means everyone else is wrong. Wrong in what way? Everyone else is making the topic so complicated, and they began the wrong way. They didn't say you're the Atma, they said you're evil. So the first thing they told us is that we're evil, not that we're the Atma. So if I say, no, you've been confused, then they realize everyone's confused, everyone in their whole civilization. And that seems heavy. And now watch what happens. They're going to become an individual for the first time, and they're going to become an immortal individual. So that seems too heavy. That's what they've been trying to avoid, is the responsibility and the freedom of being an individual self.
See, something related to that, this thing is, generally people say, merge, be like everybody else, be normal. So the definition of normal can vary for different people. And you correctly pointed out, there's a big fear psychosis goes in. And we all know, last year I went to Vatican, and I met many important people there.
Mm.
I had to take a lot of permissions. And one thing I was surprised, that they call some people as martyr. And in the culture where I come from and you come from, where taking somebody's blood or giving somebody blood is considered impure. And so when they were giving me logic of it seems very barbaric kind of philosophy, where your blood has to be given for something. Blood is considered impure. Like, if you add blood somewhere, first you clean it, wash it, and you disinfect it, and then you start doing it. So these concepts need to be either challenged or questioned. We can do that here, because see, so what is your view on this aspect of uh, viewpoint?
You see, you're trying to conduct a conversation here that's philosophical, and that is against the rest of the world's worldview. And this is the heresy. The thing that was called pagan, the word pagan is Bhagan, it's Bhagavan. The
Correct.
English word pagan is just a mispronunciation of Bhagan, of Bhagavan. The Bhagans speak philosophically like this. And so if it was a political party, this is the political party where everyone gets respect. Every living entity gets respect as an immortal being that cannot die. And that's our basis of social interaction, our basis of life, our basis of everything. And if that's blind faith, then please tell me what one lifetime, no identity, the threat of hell, an angry God, and a bunch of people who make you do weird, strange blood rituals and all of this other stuff. What has that got to do with answering the important questions? I'm confused. Or someone is.
True.
In which case, if we simply start out with every human being we talk to, we from the Vedic culture, say, okay, look, make this simple. 3/4 of existence is a place that's always light and bright and lasts forever. And everything emanates from that, just like a movie projector. And we're in the dark place. So that one's called Brahman. This is called Prakriti. We're called the Atmas. And we went from Brahman to explore the dark place called Prakriti. That's where we currently are. You'll notice it's dark until light shines on it. Raise your hand if you like staying in the dark. No. Okay, so you're probably from the light because you prefer the light. Raise your hand if you'd like to go to a place that's always sunny and bright and wonderful and beautiful. Yes, please. I'll go there. This isn't difficult. But adults are difficult because they're so complicated. They won't learn these 3 words and just think about it for a while until they get it. There's only 2 choices. We come from the dark, in which case, who cares? We only live once, then who cares? We don't come from the light. So there's no story that says we come from the light, we're beautiful, we're divine, we're on an adventure. Only the Vedic culture describes this as an adventure. And so the Mahabharata is the story of us being on this adventure. And Bhagavan finally comes and says, okay, let me explain. That's the
Okay.
most reasonable thing anyone could do, is actually come and explain it to us. You see?
There is a and you put it so well, the whole process of Prakriti, Brahman. And I got the title of this video also when it goes on YouTube now: One World versus Brahman View. Now, Prakriti is one aspect, which is nature, but Prakriti means somebody created it.
Prakriti. Prakriti.
Prakriti, so somebody created a place of work for you. It's called
And it keeps creating itself again and again and again. So there's pra, to produce, to bring into being. Kri, by what? Cause and effect. And then iteration. Do that again and 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 again. Welcome to matter. Prakriti.
so.
Everything here is by cause and effect.
So when it is it's an ongoing process. Is it right to say rest in peace to anyone?
I've got some good poems about that. I say, hey, you're not going to take a nap. You're leaving your body. The way I like to say it is, let me see if I understand this right. Just in case you may need it again, you're going to put formaldehyde in your veins, dress yourself in a nice polyester suit, buy some real estate for your corpse, put them in a very expensive box that'll last 1,000 years, because you're thinking, maybe I'll be back. So you'll come back in that body, the one with the formaldehyde in the veins that's in the dark. And so we have cities of dead people resting in peace, resting in formaldehyde and polyester suits in stupid boxes in the ground, waiting for what? This is an insane civilization. I come from it. I get to say it. If you say it, you're guests, you're rude. This is an insane civilization with people that they used to love in boxes in the ground, hoping to come back.
There are multi-storied buildings where people have saved their bodies because they are going to come back.
Yeah. This is the most insane thing you could do, is keep everything you've ever had that died and have a big room for it. And it's called my dead will come back someday room. Instead of getting the simple answer, it's you, the consciousness, that can't die. Everything else is just your dehi nosmin yata dehe, right? Komaram yovanam jara tata dehantaras praptir. Krishna gives us a childhood kind of memory, just like you were a child and then you grew a little older and then you did this and then you became old. He's saying, are you following me? So you leave your body and you take another one and you get another one. Iti, iteration.
So another point which comes to the regular questions asked: when does that cycle end? So in the one point you did mention about when you quoted the shloka about it's like a you see from within or from your own eyes, and that is science because you can experience it, you can observe it, you can record it, and then you say there is no reincarnation, it's just one life. Now we will do we'll talk more on the other topics as well, but just in your own characteristic humorous way, what do you call that, that you see the things happening in front of your eyes, and they say there is only one?
This is one of my favorite verses in the Bhagavad Gita. As you said, I'm a Jyotishi, I'm a Vedic astrologer. And the verse is so beautiful and so much fun. And I'm trying to remember which one it is at this very moment. But it's because I'm having so much fun with you. But it's the one where he says, "There you are on a yantra made of the material energy." You remember which verse that is?
Yantra Rurani Maya.
Yeah, which verse, number?
It's Hirdi. I don't remember the verse number, but Yantra Rurani Maya. That's a shloka.
Yeah.
Uh,
So
Sarva-
go ahead.
yes, but yes, that's Yantra Rurani Maya. This is the body. Yantra body is like a yantra.
So yantra means your horoscope. Your Rashi chakra, the birth chart, is called the yantra. It's a yantra. It's a geometric figure. So this body, but what that verse says is that that yantra is tied to a merry-go-round. That's what the verse says. And this is what's great, because samsara is the merry-go-round.
Correct.
So as soon as you have one of these yantras, it's pinned to the merry-go-round. So it's like the horse on a merry-go-round. You're sitting on your horse and it's going up and down, and this is your horse. So this is the yantra, and the yantra is tied to a merry-go-round called samsara. So we did Brahman, we did Prakriti, we did Atma, we did Om. Now we need to do Samsara, which is what? The wheel turning.
Ishvara sarvabhutanam hridesha arjuna tishtati. Brahmayan sarvabhutani yantra rudhani vaya. I think it's 18.61. I think so.
Yeah. 18.61.
0.61.
So, yeah, there it is. Yep. So, O Arjuna, and the Gita comes alive, I am the Supreme Being, who is the ruler and director of all beings, and I live in their hearts. Arjuna, in the Hridaya. Hri means, you know, the word cardiac comes from the Sanskrit Hridaya.
Yes.
And it means Hari's dais. The seat of Shri and Hari is our heart. So here he says, I live in their hearts, just as they reside in a place. And from there, I cause all things and all beings to revolve. Yantra Arudani Mayaya, just as if they were attached to a machine that turns them around and around.
So people have a question on what happens during heart transplant.
Well, the doctors and pharmaceutical companies make a lot of
I'm
money.
just enjoying the discussion. So we'll have.
Yes, indeed. Well, they unpin you from your heart for a few moments. And then hopefully restart it.
These questions are not intelligent. So many viewers, many people ask these questions. They're not sincere questions.
Not really.
The question. Another question is, what happens when the pacemaker puts in? I said, yes, hello. Pacemaker is just to pump your blood. So the function of the heart is mentioned. Hridadeshe Arjuna Tishtati. Hridadeshe is a region of the heart. The desha means the region.
Yes, of course it
So
does. It also means the land, the place. And
the land, the place.
yeah, we have to realize, and this is the other part of the Vedic this is a very important part of what we're discussing. The word is metaphor. The comparison is there's something called a matrushka doll that's made in Russia. And look it up. The matrushka doll has a doll carved of wood with a top and a bottom that come off. And when you open that one, there's another one just like it inside that's smaller.
Yeah.
And then you open that one and there's a smaller one inside of that one. And then another one and there's a smaller one inside of that one. But this is the correct metaphor for Sanskrit words. They're matrushka dolls. They have level 1 meaning. Then they have level 2 meaning. Then they have level 3 meaning. They could have 10 levels of meaning. This is called metaphor. There was a bumper sticker back in the 80s by the National Council of English Teachers, and it said, metaphors be with you. Metaphors be with you. From Star Wars, may the force be with you. Metaphors be with you. The Vedic civilization is multi-layered in meaning, and there's a sequence of meanings from 1 to 10, let's just say. The deeper the word, the more layers there are to the meaning. And this is where people get lost. The guru teaches you the sequence of those meanings. And when you get out of sequence, you think the story is a myth or a fairy tale, or it's not true, because you're thinking there's only one level of meaning, and that's the level on which I live every day. This is the only level of meaning, matter. But as soon as you believe that, you can't go to the different levels of existence, and we call that science now. But we don't know that science came from Veda and Vidya. And so this metaphor, many levels of meaning, and which is the primary, secondary, third, is a very important part of hearing the story. So this brings us to the Devas and Deities.
Absolutely. My next question was coming. They read my mind.
I could feel it.
Before that, I will. Before we go there. So, I I'm called by many churches to speak, and in San Diego, and I can tell you the most my experience is that what they consider as spirituality, we don't even start over there. It's moral for us. Morality and spirituality are two different aspects, totally two different aspects.
I would like you to use a different word than spirituality only because it doesn't give a tangible enough image for my satisfaction. But it is the one used in English right now to say dogma or less dogmatic.
Correct.
So let's think of spiritual as a word that means totally dogmatic, lost in the woods, or multiple levels of meaning that I'm trying to sort through. I think spiritual is used that way in our language in English, but it's really, I'm on a different level. I know it's real, but I don't know where I am. And spiritual is used that way a lot. If it's not tangible, if it's not scientific or religious, it's spiritual. And interestingly enough, the Greek spiritus means to breathe. So it means something invisible and subtle like breath. But perhaps a more interesting word for us would be to understand that even within matter, what we call quantum physics, we know it's different than chemistry, on your desk chemistry. But they're connected. But quantum is another way of looking at the same chemical experiment from an atomic perspective, where the particles are so small that you can't imagine them. So this part of science is trying to understand these minute particles, but the Veda has been doing that from the very beginning. So that idea that there are particles, or anu, as they're called, and the word atom in English is from the Latin atome, you can't cut it, and that's from the word atma.
Atma.
So atma is the original uncuttable particle. But the cuttable particles got named after the atma, and they're atoms, but you could cut them. So what we now call legitimately, we think it's fine, different layers of scientific knowing at a level of size in the thing we're studying. This is Veda. This is metaphor. The Veda invented that, not modern science. This looking on different levels and not being confused on which level I'm on is really metaphor. And spiritual doesn't say that, but multi-leveled metaphor of a multi-dimensional reality maybe helps us get there a little more specifically.
Yeah. Brahma Gyan, mostly they call it Brahma Gyan, Brahmavad, Brahma Vidya. Many words are there which are used. If you look at any of the great, I call Narad as a scientist in because he's a scientist. He talks about different these aspects. One very great spiritual person sat in my car one time and had a big technical manual, and he just turned the page like that and threw the book back. That's easy, he said. And then he took out Bhagavad Gita from his bag. He said, "This is something I can chew on the rest of my life." Now, one major accusation people say, monotheism versus you are monotheistic, pantheistic, polytheistic. I don't know how
Mhm.
many terms they have done. And this is generally from their viewpoint is a pejorative description. And they feel very proud that we are monotheistic. And,
Mhm.
when I ask them, did you ever like one professor in your life? Nobody will say yes. And there are a lot of students here because they liked it. Many professors, so one, two, three, four, many teachers they like. So the concept of Deva and Devi, what do you say on that, sir?
When somebody comes from FedEx and delivers a package to your door,
I know where you're going.
first of all, are you polite to them? Do you express your gratitude? Oh, if you're a reasonable person, they've come through hail and snow and rain and who knows what and traffic. You say, oh, well, thank you very much for bringing this. Now, then do you say, Mr. President, do you think that the person who delivers the package is the president of FedEx because they work for FedEx and delivered the package? So is the president the only person from FedEx you're willing to talk to? But there's 5 million employees and one president. And the employees don't confuse the president with themselves. So if you don't, why are you confused? And why do you have trouble talking to some of the workers? So if this universe is a university, think of it as a huge campus where we're all students learning. I call the universe the university. So at a university, there's someone cooking in the cafeteria, making your lunch, there's someone in the library taking care of the books. Do you refuse to talk to those people? Do you deny their existence? Do you think that the whole thing happens because the dean of the university is waving his wand and suddenly the whole university exists? Are you afraid to talk to the people on the campus? Are you afraid to talk to the janitor and say thank you to them for cleaning your room? Where did this fear of all these beings come from? And why is everybody rushing to just know the dean and not be grateful to the many beings around them that are making life possible? So if the universe is purposeful, then it's an incorporation. It's a great big body. Right. And in that body are countless beings who are doing things that we're benefiting from. Why would we not say hello to them? Why would we not say thank you to them? So the Vedic culture is a thank you culture.
Exactly.
I'm not afraid of all the beings. We talk to the fairies. We don't go, oh, fairies, I hate fairies. Why would you hate fairies? Why would you hate anything in nature? So why don't you talk to nature? So Devas and Deities are the embodiment of the divine functionings that are going on within nature. Each one of them is working in a department. Can't you see it? Can't you see there's a flower department and a bird department and somebody made the honey that you're having? 1 million bees. If 1 million bees made your honey, wouldn't you say thank you to them? Would you only thank God or would you thank the bees? Why are you afraid to talk to the people all around you? And to me, this is what the monotheists are. They're afraid to talk to anybody else. They don't know who they really are. They don't know who the ultimate supreme is. And oh, by the way, they borrowed a Sanskrit word, hutam, to give them the word God. Because the English word God comes from the Sanskrit word hutam for the smoke in the Vedic yajna. Isn't that ironic? So our whole Western civilization is afraid to have a conversation with anyone but the president. It's insane.
And in modern times, if you do that, you might be sued also. So if you can be sued in the current society, why should, same logic extends that if you ignore the entire hierarchy, nobody's suing you. That's why you're so safe.
So this is a very important thing, Adi, to me, that we should feel safe in nature, not afraid. We should feel, this is what an artist is. An artist is someone who looks at nature and starts drawing or writing poems or singing songs because it's so beautiful. Their response is, oh, I'm in love with you. So why don't we fall in love with nature? Why do we have to cut it to pieces, manipulate it, control it? Why do we fall in love with the animals and see how, aren't we? Is it the only interesting thing on Facebook? By the way, I call this making a selfie realization. The only selfie worth watching is animals. Most humans should just give it up and stop taking pictures of themselves.
A lot of accidents also. In Philippines is the number one selfie nation. People fall from the roof all the time.
So my point is that look at nature. It's so beautiful. Now, if you don't get excited and write poetry, draw pictures, just get ecstatic from that, then you're wounded, injured, disfigured, damaged. You've been distracted from seeing the beauty. And if your direct experience of that isn't educating you, what is? Who took that away from you? Why did you let them take it?
That brings me down to another point to debunk here is Big Bang Theory. I ask people, did anything beautiful ever came out through an explosion?
Yeah, me too. I say, hey, if we throw a hand grenade in your living room, will it improve it? But you'll like this, Sadi. I have a term for the real big one. I call it, listen, the big bling.
That's right.
Bling means an explosion of beauty. Bang means an explosion of destruction. So, yes, there was a big bling. They just mispronounced it and called it the Big Bang because it wasn't a big nuclear weapon that suddenly just destroyed everything. It was an explosion of beautiful creativity that made every beautiful thing that you see around you, and it keeps happening. It's called springtime. Did you know that spree in spring comes from brie, Brahman?
I
The
know.
pre is brie. So spring, when everything explodes into existence again, is Brahman. It's Brihat.
Thank you so much, Jeffrey G. And it's a real honor and pleasure to speak with you. It's a very fun conversation. And I'm going to text you some topics which people have already texted me where they want to hear. And also viewers for staying with us on a Saturday morning and Saturday afternoon on the East Coast, and some people from South America also here. I'd like to acknowledge you from Chile and Argentina. Thank you for joining. And there's a book website written there of Jeffrey's Gita-Comes-Alive.com. It's a beautiful cover, you won't miss it. And you can go on the website and beautiful print. And so do check it out on Amazon and on Google. You can search it or you can go to that website. So thank you for your time and namaskar,
And
pranam.
Adi, I want to honor you for taking such a beautiful stance and sitting in the just right place you're like Narada. I think you work for him because you're playful, mischievous, you're brilliant, you're knowledgeable, and yet you're still fun. And I call this a fundamentalist.
Oh, amazing.
So you, what we're doing together and what you're presenting to the world is to keep the fun, the real ananda in this conversation. But the intelligence is there, but the fun stays in the present in the front of it because it's always supposed to be a user friendly culture. And you are embodying that. So thank you.
Thank you. Gita is simple and easy to read. Go to GitaComesAlive.com, watch it. You can see this video on YouTube. There's a first part of this series also. Do watch it, subscribe it, and let us know what you feel. I have taken your topics and I'm going to discuss with Jeffrey very shortly. Namaskar. Thank you.